Doherty.
Maigad é leascan cóirle agus a hanisir mágin bhailim ceisna thorthgad fuidir an scitheálas a rinne tú ón conrú rúnde a bhí idir an IMO agus an rinslainte agus a thugtú a chara. Marialar an talas a tugann le couple luanúas teasa go inis go runne neabhaird ar na acanii ar in Simon Harris chun copt an conrú seo eil si sin an ara a bhí harcin na cantin na seo agus níor tugu an conrú dá ach a gnám cearna bhí tusa an rint an conrú le a chara san NAGP so taine smó ceisna le freigart maidir le a chud gríomhanna sa scanal seo. Tánaiste in April 2019 you leaked a confidential document to a friend of yours, the then head of the NAGP. This was the subject of controversy back in November when Village magazine broke the story. Last week, I received correspondence under the Freedom of Information. This was information that my party leader had requested for over 2 months. And it's little wonder that these documents were withheld for us for so long, because they're damning and your defence of how you leaked the confidential document now lies in tatters. It is a scandal that goes far deeper than what we once thought. They show in the documents that at the same time you leaked this document, that the line minister responsible for the negotiations, Simon Harris, was unable to obtain the contract from his officials. This is despite Simon Harris telling the Dáil in November that he never requested a copy of the contract, and he must explain for his actions and he must correct the record of the Dáil. Within the documents I received, there are repeated warnings from the department officials reiterating the confidentiality of the document and that it was still subject to negotiations with the IMO. On the 25th of April, a department official noted unilateral publication of the agreement in the absence of confirmation from the IMO that it is satisfied with the final text would represent a serious breach of trust. By that stage, you had already leaked the document to the President of the NAGP, your friend. This action was counter to what was needed to get the deal across the line and would undermine the IMO. That is very clear. Publication by the NAGP, as their National Council discussed, of the contract could have collapsed the negotiations and a contract worth €210 million. But the most shocking revelation is actually what's not contained in these documents, Taoiseach. And I need to ask you again, where did you get this document from that you gave to your friend in the NAGP? You see, in relation to Minister Harris, there are numerous emails of him requesting the document from the Minister's advisor on the 15th of April, to himself demanding the document on the 17th of April, and there are emails from officials to his office and to him explaining why they were not giving him the document. But there's no record of you seeking the document from the Department of Health. No record of the Department of Health giving you the document. Nothing. No emails, no notes, no cover notes, no messages, nothing. You already admitted in November to deleting your messages from Matthew O'Toole surrounding all of this. So there are no records there either. Nowhere. So you got a request from the document from Matthew O'Toole. You then got the document from the Department of Health. You then sent it to Matthew O'Toole. And there is no record of it anywhere. Isn't it the case, Taoiseach, that you went to extreme lengths to cover your tracks in all of this? Why? Because you knew the significance of all of this. The office of Antisha was used to pull a stroke for a friend. So can you explain to the Dáil here, how did you get this document? And how did you get this document without a trace where there are no records? And why did you tell the Dáil that there was nothing to see here when your argument simply doesn't hold up? The contract was confidential. Negotiations were ongoing. But despite all of this, you leaked this document in full knowledge of the consequences. This wasn't part of a government strategy, as you claimed. This was a stroke, plain and simple. Will you not agree?
Thanks, Deputy, and I don't agree. And these are the facts, and I'm happy to restate them again. I gave the copy of the agreement. It's not actually a contract; it's an agreement about a contract. But I gave a copy of that agreement to Dr. O'Toole, who was president of the NAGP at the time. I shouldn't have. I counted the Dáil for it last November. I've apologised for it. I acted on my own judgment, and nobody is responsible for this other than me. No officials, no advisers, not Minister Harris. And I'm sorry that I brought them into this in any way. What you're trying to do today is trying to reheat an old political controversy, largely just going back over old ground. You could be talking about COVID and the battle against the virus and the pandemic. You could be asking me about getting schools reopening. You could be asking me about the economic crisis and the people who've lost their jobs or may lose their businesses. And it says a lot about your priorities as a person and as a party that you're trying to go on this line of attack again on an issue that was dealt with in November. I made 3 public statements at the time on the matter, answered questions as best I could based on my knowledge and recollection of events that happened 2 years ago, and I can only answer for myself. I can't answer for other people. It's up to you to either accept my explanations or reject them. That's your choice. But the House heard about this and voted on this already last November. For clarity, the document that I gave Dr. O'Toole was the April 3rd version. I got it from the Department of Health, asked Minister Pearse for a version of it. He gave it to me. I didn't retain that. I then asked my advisor, my special advisor who looked after health issues for me, to go and get a copy of it again. She already had a copy. That's the copy that I gave Dr. O'Toole. We released that on FOI already. You have that. You know the differences that are between that document and the final document as published. You went to the trouble last November of counting them. So there's no dispute then or now that there were differences, but there were minor ones. In the words of the health officials in those same emails that you mentioned, language and presentation has to be tied up. There may be minor additions. It hasn't been fully signed off, and we need to agree a date with the IMO for publication. And those are totally prudent things. There's nothing in those emails saying it was commercially sensitive or that it was secret. Had those changes been substantive, as I said in November, they would have had to go back to Cabinet. It didn't go back to Cabinet. All the salient details were out there in the public domain. We had a public launch about it, which Minister Harris and I attended. The IMO issued a detailed statement with the financials and the costings and anything that was of a commercially sensitive nature. There was a government memo for information that said that engagement had concluded. That's what it says in the government memo, written by the Department of Health, that engagement was concluded. Now, it may well be the case, and it was the case, that there were some tweaks thereafter, some minor additions and changes. This was all known back in November, but that's what the government memo said, that engagement was concluded, and it was reasonable for me to believe that was the case, given that that was in the government memo produced by the Department of Health. The details were discussed at public meetings, including hundreds of GPs, and there's a tweet from Fergal Bowers that gives detailed information about the contract. The document was not a Cabinet paper or Cabinet memo. Doesn't fall under confidentiality in that sense. It was not classified as a budget secret or a secret. Some documents are. This one wasn't.
Taoiseach, you've now changed your story again. You told the Dáil that you asked your PA to request the document from the Department of Health. You now say that you asked your PA for it and she already had a copy. So you never got it from the Department of Health. Why are you changing your story? Is it because now we can prove that there's no record whatsoever of you getting the document from the Department of Health, you requesting it or receiving it? The Freedom of Information request shows clearly that your defence of your actions lay now in tatters. You suggested to this House that this was part of a government strategy. It is very clear that it was not a government strategy. It is very clear from the communications that were released 2 months later that this would have been detrimental to the discussions, a serious breach of trust, and that this document was confidential. It is also clear, as you sat in your office and put this contract to the post to the rival organisation of the IMO, an organisation which wanted to publish this and undermine the IMO, that at the same time Minister Harris was requesting access to the document and he was being refused access. And we can prove all of that again. So do you accept that you have now changed your story in relation to how you got the second version of the document? And can you explain why you're changing your story once again?
No, Deputy. That's exactly what I said, or more or less what I said back in November. Of course I got the document from the Department of Health. Where else would I have got it from? The only people who had it were the Department of Health and the IMO. I hardly got it from the IMO. So, of course, I got it from the Department of Health through Minister Harris and my special advisor. And she has that record. She has that document, and it was released already under FOI. It is the document from April 3rd. I had no later version. Some people are suggesting I did. I didn't. Why are there no records of me requesting it? Because I requested it verbally. Lots of times I talk to my ministers, advisors and officials. It's not that everything is done by email or done by writing. I had a number of documents in my inbox today. some of which I requested, some of which I didn't. For very few of them would there be a written request requesting a particular document. Things get asked for verbally, they can be handed over in person. Everything doesn't have a paper trail, and that's the reality of any workplace. My motivation, as I explained back in November, my motivation was to demonstrate to the President of the NAGP that this was a deal that they shouldn't oppose, to mollify their opposition, to get it over the line. And in the end, they didn't oppose it, and it did get over the line. So the strategy was successful in that regard.
Thank you. We're over time.
And then just to be clear, on the 17th of April, the Minister of Health requested the current draft, so a later or more up-to-date draft, presumably, appreciating that there were ongoing tweaks.
Tánaiste, we're over
current
time.
Draft,
Thank you.
ongoing tweaks. He got it the day he requested
Thank you.
it.
I'm moving on, Tánaiste. Thank you, Garmagad. I'm moving on. Tomig Bugger, right.